Well, it seems only reasonable to infuse a discussion of St. John's Apocalypse after St. Matthew's Gospel of chapter 13. Now, as a layman, the real difficulty we may encounter is trying to maintain some semblance of accuracy from his interpretations. Because of this, I found it necessary to break it down into several chapters to discuss separately. Otherwise, mostly generalities would be encountered with nothing specific to frame the time changes in which each will happen. With a new perspective of Revelations, perhaps chapter 14 will resolve the mysteries of the end days. Now, it begins at St. John's Apocalypse. There are many agnostics that believe St. John's apocalyptic predictions, in part, are similar in nature to Nostradamus the seer. The stigma attached to Nostradamus, the clairvoyant, and others of his ilk, are foretold as being prophets from the dark side. Whereas St. John the Apostle is witness to the stages of destruction leading up to the final ending of all we know as being accommodated by heavenly bodies from the most to the least. The past, present, and future are introduced through several churches, their struggles, and throughout time. It will then be followed with the four horsemen and the plight they will begin to bring to all the inhabitants nearing the end of time. But even nearing the end of these times, Satan and his minions will remain a potent force to be reckoned with throughout this turmoil. With the earth being his final destination, he will cling to what he believes is his. The force of his power will come to pass as he makes it known he has control over the earth's inhabitants. Now, in the first seal of these four horsemen, wars will become prevalent as with the quality of life being diminished. And it begins with St. John, chapter 6, verse 2, "And I saw and behold a white horse, and he was sitting on it, had a bow. And there was given him a crown, and he went forth as a conqueror to conquer." Now, St. John, chapter 6, verse 3, "And there went forth another horse, a red one, and to him who was sitting on it, it was given to take peace from the earth, and that men should kill one another, and there was given him a great sword." The third seal opened will be of famine brought on by wars. The rich will continue to confiscate their wine and oil, while the rest of the world is in famine. Now, St. John, chapter 6, verse 5, "And when he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature saying, 'Come.' And I saw and behold a black horse, and he who was sitting on it had a balance in his hand." St. John, chapter 6, verse 6, "And I heard, as it were, a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, 1 measure of wheat for a denarius, and 3 measures of barley for a denarius. Do not harm the wine and the oil." The fourth and the last prophecy of the four horsemen will usher in the threat of pestilence. St. John, chapter 6, verse 7, "And when he opened that fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature saying, 'Come.'" Now, St. John, chapter 6, verse 8, "And I saw and behold a pale green horse, and he who was sitting on it, his name is Death, and hell was following him. And there was given him power over the 4 parts of the earth, to kill with sword, with famine, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth." The next stage is of a mark designating a form of socialistic governing meant to blot out God and his Son from the annals of history. St. John, chapter 13, verse 16, "And it will cause all, the small and the great, and the rich and the poor, and the free of the bond, They ought to have a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads. And it will bring it about that no man, no one, may be able to buy or sell except him who has the mark. Another, either the name of the beast or the number of its name. St. John chapter 13 verse 18. Here is wisdom. He who has understanding, let him calculate the number of the beast. For it is the number of a man, and its number is 666. Something we have become familiar with, the number. Now St. John chapter 14 verse 9, and another, a third angel, followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and its image, and receives a mark upon his forehead or upon his hand, he also shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured unmixed from the cup of his wrath. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the sight of the holy angels and in the sight of the Lamb. Now St. John chapter 14 verse 11, and the smoke of their torments goes up forever and ever, and they rest neither day nor night, for he who have worshipped the beast and its image, and anyone who receives the mark of its name. Now generations of the past once remained vigilant against the beast. But what of our future generations if they prefer to choose to stockpile riches over spiritual pursuits? You can bet the oligarchs will want to overrun a democracy, forming an aristocratic form of government. They will do it subtly at first, drawing a separation between the state and God's affiliation. God's presence will then be removed in all public places and school systems for the sole purpose of raising future generations in their beliefs. Now, doesn't this sound like it's really beginning to happen? It's the beast and the false prophet who will no longer have power to deceive nations. They will be overthrown and cast into hell eventually. But until then, St. John chapter 19 verse 19, and I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to wage war against him who was sitting upon the horse, against his army. And the beast was seized with its false prophet, who did signs before it, wherewith he deceived those who accepted the mark of the beast, who worshipped its image. There were two who were cast alive into the pool of fire that burns with brimstone, and the rest was killed with the sword of him who sits upon the horse.